刘培元的英文教室正确发音篇啊，我们这边是改一下啊，从这个经典演说当中练习正确发音啊，之前都是第几集啊，教一些单字怎么念啊，我们这综合练习啊，从经典演说啊，像这一篇是马丁路德啊，美国黑人民权运动领袖马丁路德金啊，他非常著名的经典演说 I have a dream, 我有一个梦啊，我像这个，因为我在经典演说篇另外一个频道里面都把意思解释过了啊，所以这边我们重点是在发音，所以意思就不讲。如果你需要知道意思不太了解，就去看经典演说篇里面啊，我们一个句子一个红色，一个句子一个蓝色，这样比较清楚。那绿色字呢就是动词啊，动词有时候一个句子可能不止一个动词啊。欢迎小额赞助啊，请分别订阅我的15个 YouTube 频道啊，我们就念一下，你就注意一下。第一个注意发音啊，第二个注意停顿啊，就是就断句啊，叫断句啊。第三个就是起承转合。好，我们只念啊，重点是在发音啊，你也跟着轻轻的念，或者光是听就可以了。I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree can, as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. The keen is the joyous daybreak to end a long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself as exiled in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize the shameful conditions. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to adhere. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as the citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring the sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vast opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash a check that will give us upon demands the riches of freedom and security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. The sweltering summer of the Negroes' legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end but a beginning. Those who hold that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will not be content would have a rude awakening if the nation returned to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of a nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst of freedom for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest of degenerate into physical violence. Again and again we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust of our white people. For many of our white brothers, and evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny, and their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. As we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is a victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and hotels of the cities. We can never be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote, and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I'm mindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and the ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with his vicious racists, with his governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, and rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and no flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the south with. With this faith, we'll be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we'll be able to transform the jangling discourse of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we'll be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, cheers of the sweet land of liberty of the sin. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let the freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of the New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the highlighting Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let the freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let the freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let the freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow the freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we'll be able to speed up the day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. 好，我们这篇把它念完啊，增加就是啊，你也可以反复的看啊，增加自己的英文的发音啊。这一集念到这里。